So, Bayer Leverkusen's season so far, how have they followed up the Xabi Alonso era? They beat a 4th division side in the Pokal, a late flurry to make the scoreline more comfortable, more respectable, as this was as weak as a 4-0 can look. They lost 2-1 at home against Hoffenheim, a club that many have predicted will be in a relegation battle this season. Then, this past weekend, they drew 3-3 with Werder Bremen, another side that is expected, it's too early to say for sure, just as it is with Hoffenheim, but expected to be in the bottom half of the table. Now, the context on that draw here is that despite playing away, they went 3-1 up when Werder Bremen went down a man, only to blow that lead somehow. So yes, as you already know, Erik Ten Hag has been sacked just 3 matches into his tenure, his reign lasting just 62 days. This was the first time that a Bundesliga side had ever sacked a coach after just 2 match days. And while no doubt many will use Ten Hag as a figure of fun, that's a massive failure on the club's end of things as well. Now you're probably thinking, wow, didn't Leverkusen not only lose their coach in Xabi Alonso, but a ton, and I mean a ton of their starters? And you'd be right in saying that, but even so, there are things that have come out that point to Ten Hag never being the right fit at Leverkusen. A complete clash of personality with the club and how they do things, as well as an inability to make any impression on the players at all. Well, at least a positive one. Like anything though, there's nuance that we'll go over. So we'll get into all of that and more of the context of the squad that Ten Hag inherited and things he has said in the recent past that added to this. But let's start with this weekend.
Koulibaly! What a remarkable story!
An 18-year-old attacker, Karim Koulibaly, who was brought into Werder's senior side due to tons of injuries, got what was the equalizer and the dagger for Leverkusen's now former Dutch manager. After the match, Ten Hag had this to say, quote, "The players aren't ready. We have a new team and some of the players aren't at all fit enough to play. The team didn't function at all during the final stage of the game. That's just the way it is. They need to bring more intensity and get fitter in order to meet my standards. After the international break, we face real competition and must perform as a team. That begins with taking responsibility and delivering individual performances. And they have to demonstrate to me that they want to work together. Working together, or the opposite of such, is something that the new club captain, Robert Andrich, made sure to mention in what has become an often cited post-match interview at this point, because during the match, Palacios and Schick argued over who would take a penalty to make it 3-1, with Palacios reacting angrily and kicking the ball away. Complete disharmony. But anyway, here are some major excerpts from Robert Andrich's post-match interview. Quote, "This has nothing to do with unrest or player changes, but rather with the team on the pitch. We have too many people preoccupied with other things. We have too many people who are concerned only with themselves. Everyone played for themselves. I don't know if I've ever experienced that at Bayer. The disastrous final phase was a symbol of our current situation. This has nothing to do with any unrest, player transfers, or legal proceedings." Okay, maybe he was fibbing a bit about the unrest, but we'll get back to Andrich in a moment, as he said something that basically put the writing on the wall for Ten Hag. But again, we'll get to that in a sec. Anyway, one of the new arrivals at Leverkusen is German-born USA international Malik Tillman, who actually put Leverkusen ahead in the 35th minute of this match. Not a bad start with his new club. Now, if you're a regular here at Rabona TV, then you'll know that I've worked numerous times with the guys from the Gegenpressing podcast, Manuel and Stefan, the best English-speaking Bundesliga podcast out there for my money. Stefan Biankowski, friend of the channel, right, was actually at the match for Leverkusen's draw versus Werder Bremen, and he shed light upon that in their recent episode. Linked below, of course.
We spoke to Malik Tillman after the game, and I asked him, I was like, because he was so dejected. We talked about this afterwards. I've never seen a player so dejected in an interview like he was. And I said to him, I was like, what did Ten Hag say in the dressing room? He's like, well, he turned around and said, we played like boys today, and he was embarrassed by us. I thought that's really strong words to use in the second or third game of the season with a group of players you've only just met. And you could see just how dejected Tillman was. For a guy who'd came on, who'd played and scored a goal, and by all means hadn't played poorly at all, I think he wasn't anywhere near 100% fit, and I think he was so dejected. He looked like someone whose father had just told him they didn't love them or something like that, you know. And I just thought, when you add all those things up and in the stories that have come out since, it definitely feels like things aren't all well behind closed doors at Leverkusen right now, Manu.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. If that's what Tillman was willing to say to the media following the match, I would guess, and it's just a guess, that things were a bit harsher within the dressing room. That's just speculation, but judging from what Stefan said about the reaction from Tillman and how he's never seen a player so dejected, I mean, Tillman, as a pro, has certainly heard harsh words from coaches before. This must have been a verbal beatdown for the players. And honestly, both at Manchester United and at Ajax, Erik Ten Hag was known to be very, well, not friendly with his squad, tough on them. And at Ajax, it worked. Elsewhere, clearly it hasn't. Now, as promised, we'll go back to Andrich, as another line that he dropped won't have gone unnoticed by those who are familiar with Leverkusen's history, as when he was asked if he has felt this kind of dramatic situation at Leverkusen before, he replied with, quote, 3 years ago under Gerardo Seoane. I have a few flashbacks. There are so many things that come together, but that only has to do with our own motivation. In the end, we're on the field and we have to get it done. We can't constantly hide behind other things. So Gerardo Seoane was Xabi Alonso's Leverkusen predecessor, who was sacked by the club at the beginning of October of 2022, with Leverkusen sitting in 17th place. That same dysfunctional team was able to rise under a different coach, as we know, which no doubt won't be forgotten by the likes of Fernando Caro, the club CEO, and Simon Rolfes, the sporting director. They know that a group can be terrible under one guy and great under another. And speaking of those two, neither of them spoke out in support of Ten Hag after the match, and Caro was even in the mix zone, according to Stefan from the Gegenpressing podcast. Well,
former Manchester United boss Erik Ten Hag has been sacked by Bayer Leverkusen.
On Monday, 2 days after the disappointing draw with Werder Bremen, Leverkusen announced the parting of ways with Erik Ten Hag. Both Rolfes and Caro provided quotes in the press release, with Rolfes saying, quote, "This decision was not an easy one for us. Nobody wanted to take this step. However, the past few weeks have shown that building a new and successful team with this setup is not feasible. We firmly believe in the quality of our team and will now do everything we can to take the next steps in our development with a new setup." They do have a good team, a team that should make the top four. But anyway, Caro added that it, quote, was necessary. Ouch. Now, despite Ten Hag having a decent reputation in Germany prior to this debacle, given he was important to Pep Guardiola's success in some way at Bayern Munich, he was not, in fact, Leverkusen's first choice manager. That first choice candidate from the summer was actually Cesc Fabregas, of whom Leverkusen couldn't prize him away from Como. Neither could Inter. But Ten Hag was the man they went with, and Simon Rolfes said that he was an attractive option given how he was able to guide along young players at both Ajax and Manchester United, namely at Ajax, right? I would reckon, with that 18-19 squad. But I guess there was a breakthrough under his watch at United as well, such as Kobbie Mainoo. Given there was going to be a lot of turnover at Leverkusen and that the club was going to sign younger talents, I guess they thought Ten Hag fit the profile of what they needed. Now, speaking of the turnover, this is where you have to feel for Ten Hag in some way, because this is just ridiculous. Florian Wirtz, sold. Jeremy Frimpong, sold. Amin Adli, sold. Victor Boniface, loaned. Odilon Kosunu, sold. Piero Hincapié, loaned out with an obligation to buy, so effectively sold. Lucas Radetzky, the club captain, sold. Jonathan Tah, a second captain, left for Bayern. Granit Xhaka, another leader in the team, sometimes captain, sold to Sunderland. Now, the writing was on the wall for a couple of those names, such as Frimpong, Wirtz, and Tah, but so many other names, important ones, joining them on the way out, that will have been a big blow to Ten Hag's plans, as those weren't really expected at the start of the summer. Now, one of them, Granit Xhaka, was a clear point of contention between Ten Hag and the club. When it was becoming clear that Xhaka was close to joining Sunderland, Ten Hag fought against this hard, saying, quote, "This club has let go of 3 important players, and we won't let go of any more players. That's not possible. That would neglect the structure, but above all the culture of the squad too much. Granit is a leader. He signed for 5 years here and has 3 more years left. He's too important for us to let go of him." Now, making a statement like this is either a bit misguided from Ten Hag, or was an attempt at pressuring someone like Simon Rolfes into not selling Xhaka or anyone else. Going public like this, only for Xhaka to leave, will no doubt cause friction between the coach and the executives, agree with Ten Hag or not, which I personally agree with him. The amount of sales was ridiculous for any manager to deal with, but the club would obviously prefer if you wouldn't make such statements. Simon Rolfes and Fernando Fernando Caro, didn't expect this statement, as they said getting that fee for an aging player like Xhaka was a win-win-win. Win for Sunderland, win for Leverkusen, and for Xhaka. Couple that with some bad optics, such as Leverkusen losing 5-1 to Flamengo's under-20 side during a tour of Brazil, and things were clearly not clicking. After that match, Ten Hag was prickly with the media, saying that he, quote, couldn't give a shit about results in the preseason. Fair enough, but I mean, come on. The U20s? If that wasn't enough, then their atrocious performance against Hoffenheim in the opening match day was further proof that there was plenty of dysfunction. So much so that new arrival Mark Flecken felt comfortable enough to say to the media, quote, we have to take a look at ourselves instead of praising the opponent. It all comes together. If you make too many mistakes in your own build-up play, you'll end up chasing the ball more than running with it. Then you're playing more against yourself than against your opponent. Today, we tried, and it didn't work. The coaches have to analyze that. It's simply that things didn't go right today. We don't need to beat around the bush. We have to take a look at ourselves. But talking everything down now would also be wrong. I mean, as if we needed any further proof of that, right? Clearly, there were things going on behind the scenes and in conversation with the players that Rolfes and Caro didn't like. Add to this how tactically Leverkusen looked like, well, they didn't know how they were supposed to play, a common criticism of Ten Hag at United as well. In what world should they be so open against a Werder Bremen side that was a man down? In what world should Leverkusen start to retreat after going 3-1 up to simply protect a lead and invite pressure, doing even more so after Werder Bremen pulled one back for 3-2. There were clearly issues there. Issues with his team selection choices, issues with tactics, with how he spoke to the players, and issues with what he was saying publicly. After the dismissal of Erik Ten Hag, Simon Rolfes said, quote, we sat down last week and also at the weekend, regardless of the result, and simply had the feeling that things were going in the wrong direction. Before we arrive at the wrong destination, we decided to make the decision early, now, during the international break. Of course, from the impressions from the preseason, from the first games, we had the feeling that we had to do it now. What's fundamentally important is that because we have so many new players, there is clarity on many points and that the direction is clear. And we've been missing that in some areas. That's a crucial point. Yikes. Having a clear idea of how you want to work with the team, with the directors, hell, how you want to play tactically, seems like the minimum that a coach can offer. Forget about executing on it, just offer that. And so my first thought is, well, shouldn't Rolfes and Caro take some blame for the appointment of Ten Hag, of which they did? As Rolfes said, quote, when you make decisions and bear responsibility, you also make bad decisions. But if you then believe you've reached the point where it can't work in the future, it's an even bigger mistake to let it continue. And since beginning work on this video, more really worrying stuff has come out, such as an article from Bild, which said that nobody, and I mean nobody, got on with him. He didn't warm to coaches, physios, doctors, nutritionists, nobody, with Rolfes being concerned that Ten Hag couldn't get his ideas across to anyone in the squad either. Another article from Kölner Stadt Anzeiger, perfect pronunciation, no doubt, said that he was described as completely resistant to advice and despite agreements to the contrary, tried to get involved in squad planning, often suggesting players from the agency that he, Ten Hag, belongs to. He also apparently gave no team talk for the match against Hoffenheim and was surprised as to why it was so quiet in the locker room. Okay, so as with anything, there is nuance to this. Is it true that the job at Leverkusen is a difficult one given the sheer amount of important departures? Yes, of course. And the club would be understanding in that they didn't expect fantastic results right away. But nothing happens in a vacuum. And given what we've heard from the club, what we've heard from the players, and what we can glean from their quotes after matches, it seems as if there was major dysfunction between the club and the coach, as well as between the coach and the players. And like Rolf said, at that point, it would be a mistake to let things continue. Acknowledge the mistake and move quickly to rectify it. All right, guys, that's it from me. I hope this was illuminating in some ways for you. I appreciate you watching as always, and I'll see you in another video soon. Later.